Hello students, today we are going to discuss about introduction to economic development, and this is a part of Indian economy of BCom students. First we will discuss what is the meaning of economic growth, and then we will discuss about economic development, because these words we very frequently hear that India is growing, Indian economy is growing very fast than many other economies of the world, and India is growing at 7%, all these things we hear. So, first we will understand what is meant by economic growth. Economic growth refers to increase in the size of the economy of a country over a period of time. For example, we measure quarterly economic growth, half yearly economic growth, annual economic growth, etc. So, what is meant by the size of the economy? The size of the economy is measured by its gross domestic product, which is known as GDP. GDP means the total value of goods and services produced in a country during an year. So, if we are talking of annual GDP, so if it is the total value of goods and services produced in a quarter, if we are talking about quarterly GDP. So, economic growth can be measured in two ways. One is nominal economic growth, the other one is real economic growth. So, what is meant by nominal economic growth? Let us see first. Nominal economic growth means increase in the monetary value of goods and services produced in a country over a period of time. This includes changes in both the volume of production and also the change in prices of goods and services. For example, if the prices increase, the GDP will also increase. If the production increases, GDP will also increase. So, nominal GDP growth takes into account both the volume of production and also the prices. That means, if there is inflation, the economic growth will be high. If there is deflation, economic growth will be less. So, that means if we want to measure the real increase in production of goods and services, we have to take out the impact of prices on the GDP. So, when we take out the effect of prices on the GDP, that means if we take out the effect of inflation on the GDP, it is called real GDP. So, real GDP is explains as how much real growth is there in the volume of goods and services produced in a country during a particular period. Let us take an example to understand the difference between nominal and real GDP. Suppose in a year the volume of goods produced was 100 kilograms and the price of each good was 2 rupees per kilogram. That means the total value of production of goods was 200 rupees. So, in year 2, 104 kilograms of goods were produced and the price was 2 rupees 5 paise per kilogram. So, the value of production was 213 rupees 20 paise. The growth rate in nominal GDP is value 2, that means value of goods produced in second year minus value of goods produced in first year divided by value of goods produced in first year, and to calculate percentage we have to multiply it with 100, that means 6.6%. The real GDP growth is volume 2 minus volume 1 divided by volume 1 into 100, that means only 4%. That means if you take prices into account, the growth in GDP is 6.6%. If you do not take the effect of prices on goods, then the GDP growth was only 4%. So, this is the impact of prices on GDP. So, to find out the actual growth in the production of goods and services, we take only real GDP into account. Now, let us understand why should we be concerned about economic growth and what is the importance of economic growth. The first one, when economic growth is high, government can collect more tax revenue because the government taxes the revenue of the country. So, the extra tax which the government collects because of the increase in GDP of the country, that can be used to provide public goods and services to people. Public goods means or services means health care, education, then social security and other basic public services such as infrastructure, roads, ports, etc., can be provided with the extra revenue that the government collects from the people because of increase in GDP. The second most important aspect of economic growth is growth results in more benefits to both employees and workers. When the growth is high, then the employees will get more salaries, workers will get more wages. These higher incomes results in more spending. That means, the workers and employees will spend more. That creates more demand. When demand is more, production will also increase. When production increases, employment will also increase. That will further increase the incomes of people, and many people will come out of poverty and their living standards will improve if economic growth is high in a particular country. Then the third important thing is, most of the countries have shown success in reducing poverty and increase in access to the infrastructure and other public goods because of higher economic growth. For example, South Korea, Taiwan, Vietnam, etc. They developed very well because of increased economic growth. In India also, now we are witnessing high economic growth, and the government is also spending lot of money in creating infrastructure such as roads, ports, airports, etc. And the fourth one is, government can also increase its investment in infrastructure, as I have already mentioned, when the higher tax revenue is collected. And now let us discuss about factors contributing to economic growth. What factors will contribute when the economic growth is high? It depends upon several factors. The first one is the stock of capital per worker. More the capital in the country, the more the worker can produce, because he will be given sophisticated machinery, etc., and technology will be provided to him, and then the worker can produce more. So, a country with more capital can produce more, and that means the country has to invest more in capital to increase the economic growth of the country. The second one is the quality of labor. So, if we have more labor, high quality labor, the production will be more. So, the government has to invest more on education and health of the people, so that they can become quality workers and their productivity will increase and the economic growth will increase. The third one is the level of technology. If the government invests lot of money in research and development and creates good technology, latest technology, sophisticated technology, then the productivity in the country will increase and the economic growth will be high. And the fourth factor that contributes to economic growth is consumer spending. It means spending on final goods and services by people for their personal and household use. That means when the economic growth is high, people can spend more. So, when they spend more, production will increase, investment will increase, employment will increase, incomes will increase, and that will result in further growth of the economy. So, not only spending, people should also save. Saving will result in further investment. So, there should be a balance between saving and consumption in the country. And the fifth one is, if the government cuts down on taxes and gives subsidies to industry to produce more, then the economic growth will be high. Not only subsidies to industry, government may also give subsidy to poor people to consume more. When they consume more, this results in more demand, more production and more employment, more incomes, etc. And the sixth factor is the government policy. If the government adopts a liberalized policy, that means if it controls the industry less and removes all restrictions on private sector, that will result in expansion of production and higher economic growth. The seventh factor is infrastructure spending. We have already discussed about this. If the government spends more on infrastructure such as roads, ports, airports and other supply chain links, then the cost of logistics will come down, and more roads means more facilities to industry and people to take their goods to the places of consumption, and that will result in further increase in consumption, production, employment, investment, etc. Now, let us discuss about economic development. Economic development is the process of creation of or production of wealth. It is a gain to the population of the country. Economic development refers to transition of a country from a low income country to a developing country to a high income country. So, India is in the second stage now. We are an emerging economy along with Brazil, China, South Africa, etc. So, first let us understand what is meant by low income country, what is meant by middle income country and what is meant by high income country. As per United Nations and World Bank, low income countries means the per capita income in those countries, per capita income means income per person, is less than $1,145. Lower middle income country means if the per capita income is between $1,146 to $4,515, that country is called a lower middle income country. What is meant by upper middle income country? If the per capita income is between $4,516 to $14,005, then the country is upper middle income country. High income countries means the per capita income is more than $14,006, and USA, Canada, France, etc. they come under high income country category. So, now India is in lower middle income status and we are trying to move to upper middle income status. So, how to measure economic development? Let us see. So, the measures can be divided into economic measures and social measures. So, through economic measures and social measures, we can increase the growth of the country and we can move from lower income country to a upper middle income country. So, what are those economic measures? Let us see. First one is the increasing the GDP or GNP. GNP means gross national product, GDP means gross domestic product. So, per capita GDP if we increase and if we keep the population growth at a stable level and if the occupational structure of the labor force undergo a change, and if urbanization takes place and per capita consumption and increases and infrastructure develops, then the country will develop. So, social measures means literacy rate, life expectancy, health care, caloric intake, infant mortality. On these things, if the government works and improves literacy rate and increases the life expectancy at birth of the people and provides good facility, healthcare facilities, and increases the nutritional food intake of the people, and if the mortality rate of at the infant level, if it comes down, then the country will develop. So, what is meant by GDP per capita? Let us see. GDP, as I have already mentioned, is the market value of all final goods and services produced by a country during a particular period, usually 1 year. It is a measure of economic activity. So, if GDP is more, means the economic activity in the country is more. So, the more that a country produces per person, the more developed the country is. For example, the per capita GDP in USA in 2023 was about $65,000, whereas the per capita GDP of India during 2023 was only about $2,240. So, that means the USA per capita GDP is about 29 times more than that of India. So, there is need for increasing the per capita GDP in the country by increasing the economic growth. The second one is population growth. The population growth has a big impact on population and per capita GDP. For example, 1% growth in population per annum will take 72 years for the country to double its population. For example, in USA it happened, and a population growth rate of 4% will make population to double in 18 years. Mozambique. So, in population doubled in 18 years because the population growth is 4%. But it is not wise to impose restrictions on population growth to a greater extent. For example, China is facing that situation now. They have implemented one child policy and strictly followed it for more number of years, and now the population growth has come down and the country is facing shortage of population. If the population grows below 2.1% per annum, that means the population of the country will come down. So, the population growth rate should be around 2.1, 2.2%, and it should not come down below that, and it should not increase very high than 2.1 or 2.2. So, both the situations are bad for the country, and the population growth should be stabilized at 2.1 or 2.2% per annum. The third one is occupational structure. If you take for example India, most of our GDP is contributed by services sector, and only 15% of the GDP is contributed by agriculture sector, whereas 50 to 60% of the population is dependent on agriculture. That shows why the disparities in income are very high. So, the services sector is contributing only 10% of the employees, whereas the GDP contributed by services sector is 60%, whereas the agriculture is contributing only 15% of GDP, but the population dependence on agriculture is about 50 to 60%. So, this should be corrected. That means the population which is highly dependent on agriculture, a part of it should be shifted to industry and services sector by providing quality education at the grassroots level. That will balance the occupational structure and the country will develop fast. Then the third one is urbanization. urbanization means the percentage of population of the country which lives in urban areas. So, the higher the percentage of population that lives in urban areas, the more the development of the country is. So, more towns and more cities with good facilities should be developed if the country has to develop. So, high urbanization is found in developed countries and low urbanization is found in underdeveloped countries. In India, about 35% of population lives in urban areas and this percentage is growing, but one caution is unplanned urbanization will lead to several problems which we are witnessing now. Take for example, Bangalore or Hyderabad, even a small rain is causing heavy floods and the people are suffering and they do not have adequate sanitation, drinking water and other facilities. So, urbanization should be a planned one. And per capita consumption, how much a person is consuming is a very good indicator of development. For example, what is the per capita consumption of electricity in the country. So, if it is high, that means the country is a developed country. The next one is infrastructure. A country's infrastructure provides the foundation to the society. It includes urban centers, transport networks, communication networks, energy distribution systems, farms, factories, mines, schools, hospitals, postal services, police, armed forces, etc. All these constitutes both economic infrastructure and social infrastructure. So, what are the now let us go to social measures from economic measures. So, I have already explained that one of the important social measures to measure the development of a country is literacy rate. So, if the literacy rate is very high, literacy rate means not just providing education, we have to concentrate on quality education to people. So, unless the quality of education is improved, then the people will not get the real benefit of education. And life expectancy means how many years a person lives after birth. Is it 70 years, 50 years or like that. So, in India the life expectancy is increasing, which is a good sign. And health care, so quality health care, that means if the people have good health means they can contribute more, their productivity will be high. And caloric intake, not just calories, but people should be provided with nutritious food. So, food security means not just providing rice, but also we should also focus on other things such as proteins, then fats, then nutrition apart from the carbohydrates. So, once these things are improved, then the caloric intake will improve and then people will become healthy. And infant mortality, the mortality rate should also be reduced and the life expectancy must be increased. High life expectancy, good health care for all, better intake of calories, less mortality rate of infants, all these things indicate the level of development of a country. Then United Nations has developed an index to measure the development of a country. It takes not only the GDP into account, but also other measures to see whether the human development in the country is high or not. This is called Human Development Index. This index is developed for every country and this index composes of 3 indicators. One is life expectancy, second one is education and the third one is real per capita GDP. Higher the human development index, higher the development of a country. India ranks very low on human development index, but the one positive thing is that it is improving, but it has to improve further. Now, let us understand the meaning of underdevelopment. Underdevelopment means lagging behind other countries in terms of economic, social and political progress. Now, let us see what are the characteristics of underdevelopment. As we have already mentioned, the development indicates high level of income and underdevelopment indicates low level of income. The per capita GDP of underdeveloped countries is extremely low. For example, the per capita GDP of Burundi in 2022 was only $250 and it is more than $65,000 in the case of USA. Further, we find large disparities in income between rich and poor in underdeveloped countries. So, this is the reason why, for example, in countries like India, we find top 10% living like Americans and bottom 10% living like the African people in African countries like Ethiopia, etc. In underdeveloped countries, mass poverty exists. The degree of poverty increases due to several factors. For example, increase in population or inequalities in income distribution or increase in price level or low productivity level, etc. Because of these reasons, poverty will be on a very big scale. So, for example, in India, the below poverty line people are, of course, the percentage is decreasing, but still it is very high. Majority of population in underdeveloped countries live below the poverty line. The third important characteristic of underdevelopment is lack of capital formation. As I have already mentioned, unless capital is increased, per capita availability of capital is increased in the country, the country will not develop. So, if the per capita income is very low, if the rate of savings are very low, this results in lack of capital formation. So, if savings are less, investment will be less. When the investment is less, capital will be less. So, this will result in low capital formation and low investment in physical assets, low human capital and less investment in research and development, etc. So, these things will result in underdevelopment. The third characteristic is heavy population pressure. We have already discussed. In underdeveloped countries, in one country we have discussed that the population growth is about 4%. This result in heavy population pressure, and when the birth rates are high and due to improved health conditions, if the death rates fall, then the population will increase exponentially, and this creates various problems like scarcity of land, small size of land holdings in agriculture, problems of unemployment, food crisis, etc. So, this is another factor which results in underdevelopment. Then unemployment problem. Excessive population results in lack of opportunities and people will not get gainful employment, and that results in huge unemployment and underemployment. Underemployment means there is no comparison between what the education degree the person holds and what the employment in which he is engaged. If there is large difference between qualification and the type of employment in which they are engaged, that is called underemployment. Too much dependence on agriculture leads to more people working on agriculture fields than required, and this results in underemployment and disguised unemployment. The third characteristic is agriculture backwardness. The underdeveloped countries suffer from agriculture backwardness. Nearly 60 to 70% of the population of these countries depend on agriculture, and only 15 to 25% of the GDP come from agriculture. So, production is low, productivity is low, and the agriculture becomes unviable for the people to pursue, but still they pursue agriculture because there is no other option for them.